This is an open letter to the Saint Society and Mr. John Stewart and Mrs. Amanpour. First of all, about a week ago, I thought I stopped making these videos for the sake of health and wealth, at least. I should stop making these videos before I get shot by one of the uh, superior race. One of the members of the superior race, before one of those members shoot me or do something worse, like, expel me or imprison me. I thought because of that because of that I would stop these videos, but what the hell, you only live once. And I've noticed I might have been inspiration for some very talented comedians, the truth tellers of our society. These are jesters. The comedians are jesters, and jesters are those folks who can, tell the king he has no robe and get away with it. Anybody else beside the jester of the court would say that show the flaws to the king's flaws to the king, they get their heads chopped off. The only person in every sort of society, the only person that can get away with a lot of shit without losing his head have always been the court jesters. And I have always, had a fascination with the court jesters. And there is a there had had there was a one of the first books I read as a 13-year-old, 14-year-old was the the life and work of Karim Shirei, which was, one of the more recent jesters of the court in one of the shadiest uh, kingdoms in the Middle East. And this Karim Shirei was basically uh, he again uh, his job was as a jester of the court. Within his job as humoring everybody, he was the only one who could get away with, fingering the king and keeping his head. So I've always been fascinated with court jesters and comedians. If we consider democracy as, the people being the kings, yes, in that sense, democracy works. In the sense that now these jesters, with the help of media and now social media, these jesters have been, able to finger the rulers and get away with it. And their audience are supposedly finger the managers and get away with it, because their audience, the kings, are the common folks who tune into them. So they're jesting for the common folks because supposedly the common folks is the king. Here's to the common folks. So as such, I am very, I'm very, uh, I'm very honored that some of my work have been inspiration for some very talented comedians. I I love jesters of the court. Always have. Now here's the thing, Miss Amanpour. I heard you a few um, days ago on Jon Stewart and on Stephen Colbert. You went on and you repeated the same thing, that it's not our fault. They don't let other reporters in. They're killing people. Yes, probably they are. But hey, we asked, we demanded, we asked, and they didn't let us in. So, and besides, it's dangerous. They kill reporters there. That's why we have, You felt justified in not sending in reporters in because they kill reporters in Palestine now. And apparently there is no condemnation, not no serious condemnation of anything. It reminds me of the last days of South Africa, where the white folks were, machine gunning the natives, and up to the last moment, Mr. Reagan and Thatcher, whoever the fuck over there was ruling Britain at that time, supposedly they get South Africa get away with a lot of shit at the end. Anyway, no, my point is something else. My point is this, that imagine yourself, Mrs. Amanpour, imagine yourself during the mass murder that happened to the Jewish folks in Europe. During that time, somebody like you was saying the same thing to Uncle Sam's managers, that to the people and to the Uncle Sam's managers and people, that we don't know, there might be something really bad happening over there, but because we don't know, because the Germans don't allow our reporters in. I'm sorry? Here's the thing. If the expectation is that whatever that is over there, supposedly war, if the expectation is that neither side should target civilians, even though there are some shit hiding behind the civilians, because they are civilians, they should not be targeted. They shouldn't be targeted by stating that, oh, there are shitty people hiding behind the civilians, so we didn't have any choice. No. That whatever is behind it doesn't justify you blowing up civilians, period. So if a reporter says, I am going to embed myself with civilians, that reporter must be safe. Isn't that the case? The idea of war, if the rules should apply, civilians should be spared at all costs. And at all costs means even if it's like a hostage taking. You don't mow down the civilians because there's a fucking hostage taker in your own land. You don't give a go-ahead for the SWAT team to go in, just rush the door. If there is a chance all of the civilians inside are going to die, there's a protocol. They shall not rush in if they shall not do something that will endanger the life of civilians. If that is the case and they apply that, you say, okay, our reporters will be embedded with civilians. You can be sure, whoever is in charge in Israel, you can be sure that our civilians will not be in contact in any way with anybody of military or militia or gangsters. We are not going to contact them at all. We are going to embed ourselves with the civilians. So we should be safe, right? Because our reporters are going to embed themselves with civilians. That should be your answer. And if they say no, which they will, still no, you're not allowed to enter, even though you promised to only embed yourself with civilians. If you are ready to do that and they still say no, which they will, then your job, Ms. Amanpour, is not to bring the two sides together. At this point, your job, which you claimed on, during the peacetime, you bring the two sides together to get the shit over with. During the peacetime, but when this bullet starts flying, your job as a reporter, journalist, whatever you want to call yourself, is not to bring the two sides together. At that time, you should be on the ground just reporting exactly what's happening, so to shame either side if they do anything inhuman to each other. That would be your job at that point. There will be time to bring the two sides together. But you're saying that we didn't report anything from on the ground because our reporters are endangered, they get killed, and we know it's like 200 reporters have been killed. Uh, okay, so your job at that point is not to bring people together, Mr. Amanpour. At that time, your job should be every half hour in your show, every 15 minutes in your show, you mention this and you say, we are presuming that Israel is committing mass slaughter over there. That's why they don't let us, our reporters, in. We want to know why. You should be repeating this sentence 500 times during your whole show, and anybody who comes on the show every day, 15 times, 500 times a day, you should be, if your first question of everybody is why you don't let our reporters in, our reporters are going to be get in bed with civilians. If you can't spare the life of your civilians, then you're committing mass murder. This should be repeated 24/7. If they don't, you let your reporter in, to put pressure on them to assume the worst, and to, tell people that we are assuming the worst. This should have been, if this had happened during what the Germans were doing in Europe, and every 15 minutes it was repeated on news, on TV and radio, that we believe the Germans are doing something really bad over there. We need reporters in. We need access. Well, maybe, before so many people died, the Germans would have stopped. And, let's be frank, a lot of these folks who are in Israel, they're also from German ancestry. These folks are like this. White people in general, pink skins in general, but Germans and the British in particular, they got a few screws loose. They're warmongers. You get them on that side of things, and suddenly half the planet goes up in flame. Fuck. Here's the thing, Mrs. Amanpour. You have to. This means putting pressure. You come on screen and scream. You come on screen and scream that there must be mass genocide, mass slaughter happening there because they don't give us access. They don't give our reporters access. And your CEO, if he was really a CEO of a news organization, he would be in the White House, smacking, his hand on the table, demanding access for his journalists in Israel just to make sure atrocities don't happen. But is your CEO doing that? Is your CEO doing that? Are you doing that? No. You're bringing people together at times of war, people who are not in a decision making. Did you bring the head of Hamas and the head of Israeli IDF in the same room? If you do that, yes, you may be able to, with you talking, bringing people together. If you do that, then you can solve a problem. But while war is happening and mass murder is happening, you bring people together to what? To waste time? Are you kidding me? This was okay. Here's the thing. This was exactly the same, scenario that they played for during the invasion of Iraq, and most of Afghanistan as well. The idea is they used to wine and dine you journalists in Kuwait or in Saudi Arabia. They wined and dined the journalists with cocktails and free pussy and I guess, free dildo. They wined and dined the journalists in Saudi Arabia while the shit was happening, and they didn't let reporters go in from that side or this side. And those who went in from that side, every war has two sides. When the reporters went in from that side, who are from Al Jazeera, they got blown up. And that's the whole, the Julian Assange sin is to show that journalists were not allowed in. Period. You hear over here, you have some cocktail and pussy. If any journalist sneaks in there, they're gonna die. So what? The point is, Mrs. Amanpour, you are the journalist who agrees to have cocktail in the back room, and you don't bring up the matter that you're not allowed in to report on the genocide. You just say, "Oh, we are not allowed in. We don't know. We are assuming something bad is happening, but we don't know." They tell us they don't know. They're denying it. You see, they're denying it. You did the same thing with the Germans during what they were doing to the Jewish people. You did the same thing at that time. We take their word for it because they're the good guys. They're white, just like us. So they must be the good guys. They're pink skins. Fuck. They must be telling the truth because they're like us. They're our allies because, hey, most important of all, we share the same complexion. That makes us allies. What the fuck? And, Mr. Amanpour, that I understand your situation is because it seems your brown part, your brown soul had died a long time ago. You're using your last name to push the pink skin agenda. You're using your last name to push either knowingly or unknowingly. It's just they bought you, they purchased you, and you're pushing the pink skin agenda. Talking about peace with the people who have been, pushed out of their land because of the missile that was coming down on their head. There was a whole bunch of them. Mr. Bukele from El Salvador is an ex-Lebanese, two second generation El Salvadoran, but originally from Lebanon, with deep roots over there. Had to relocate. Why? Because, as soon as Israel established over there, the whole neighborhood went to shit. There are pictures to prove it. I mean, if one neighbor, here's the thing, if one neighbor comes in and within 75 years, all neighbors' homes have been destroyed, one way or another. If one neighbor comes in and the whole neighborhood, all the neighbors' homes goes to shit, from Egypt to Syria to Jordan to Iraq to Afghanistan to, all of these neighborhoods go to shit. Libya, and let's not forget this side, Libya and Algeria and Tunisia, all of them, it's kind of dictatorships that, we either, the pink skin either sanctions, embargoed, or pink skins who have been bought and purchased. So, it's still shit supporting dictators where there is no economy, there is no nothing, there is no shit, but they get some money, printed money, some computerized money number every month or every year. Some computerized number is deposited in their account so they can buy whatever shit they need because their own system is not sustainable. That's exactly what you're doing with both Israel and Egypt. You're, by paying them, both of them, you're keeping an unsustainable situation. That's why you have to apply force. If you have to apply force, you're trying to maintain an unsustainable situation. If you're trying to apply force, that means you're trying to sustain an unsustainable situation. In Israel, they're trying to sustain a white minority in a brown majority. A white minority of European Ashkenazis in between a large brown majority, and keeping identity. I mean, you could be minority in a majority who are brown and Muslim, and not try to outcompete the natives in terms of warfare or in terms of you know oomph in international order. If you do, there is something wrong. That's an unsustainable situation that is being made sustainable by purely injecting some digitized numbers to both sides, all sides, Egypt, Lebanon, maybe some to Palestinians, to Israelis. They're all being injected with artificial numbers, money, and arms to both sides, trying to stabilize an unstable situation. Salute to sanity.